correct
All
spelling.
My dad used Gonzo, I used Gonzo for now they're changed. It's hard to even get. It was
That's perfect. We can do, where's the stop button? Perfect. It's like, I'm not, I don't want to go. Yeah.
I hope your kids are better shortly. Yeah, it's miserable for you as a parent.
I'll have to check on that.
So the others would usually say, what's it called? I don't know what it said, but it was, yes, and I didn't read on it any farther.
Okay, let me check.
Yeah, okay.
I got a list for this Rocky Mountain meeting on Wednesday, so. That's all right.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, is this the meeting in, oh, okay.
It's just a monthly.
Oh,
board
okay.
meeting.
Yeah, I think I saw it. Last time I was on, I think I saw something about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, how are you doing? How are you doing?
Yeah. I figure out after this, I swing for pick up that stuff.
Sorry.
How are you?
That's a true
You
statement.
leave it off your chest, but it still doesn't resolve it.
Doesn't fix anything. No.
Life goes on.
Yeah.
Some days you just wish you'd slow down.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Mhm.
Even calm
Yeah.
I guess we signed up for that too, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Somewhere along the way, we signed up for that.
Yeah, they kind of oversized all
Are
of
you
it.
guys ready, or do you need another couple minutes? What'd you say?
I think we can gas it.
All right.
That
Good morning. We will call this meeting to order. If you'd all please stand with us and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good morning. Thank you all for coming. To begin, it is January 27th. This is the Broadwater County Commissioners' Business Meeting. And this is where we take care of business for the 6,000 residents of Broadwater County. This meeting is open to the public, and we welcome anyone to participate by promoting basic civility. Documents are available for your review prior to the meeting. This is the notebook in the clerk and recorder's office. These meetings are recorded. They are on YouTube and the county website. These are the only videos of these meetings that are unedited and uncut. We follow Robert's Rules of Order and the county civility and open meeting policies. Under Robert's Rules of Order, all comments shall be directed to the board chair. Sideline conversations are welcome but will be taken out into the hall. For public comment, please come up to the podium. Upon recognition by the chair, state your full name for the record each time you stand to speak. This is because the folks watching the county video don't know who's speaking unless you state your name. They can't necessarily see you. For public comment, each person who wishes to speak will be given an initial 3 minutes to do so. Finally, the disclaimer is in our minutes and has been approved with our minutes. And it states, public comment is the opinion of citizens as individuals and does not necessarily reflect accurately on Broadwater County actions, operations, policy, practice, or processes. So with that, do we have any public comment on any subject not on the agenda and that the commission has jurisdiction over? Public comment? Public comment. All right. That's quick and easy. We have minutes from January 21st. They were emailed out this week, earlier this week, last week, I guess.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for January 21st.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the minutes from January 21, 2020. Any public comment? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carries. Thanks, Ann. Okay, next we have the Commissioner's Community Update. This is an opportunity to share with each other what we've been doing this week. Daryl, what you been up to?
Okay, let's see, I had MMAC meeting in Helena. That went well. Those folks are doing a great job up there in economic development, not only for our county, but Lewis and Clark County and Marr County. We did our website presentations that were done by the two folks, the two companies that we felt meted our requirements, and I think they went well. I've been receiving some comments back from folks on their recommendation. Had a LEPC meeting, attended the Solid Waste Board meeting, and then a Fairgrounds Master Plan meeting, which hopefully we'll see the results of that here later today. And I have been having a public works meetings with Mary and TJ. We've been meeting once a month here, just started here maybe in the past couple of months. And I can kind of give you an update of what we have talked about. Up at Springville, someone's donating a piece of property for a bus turnaround on the just south of the first cattle guard, and the reason is there was a near miss between the school bus and a log truck on 287, so they would like to put that school bus turnaround there to get the bus off the highway. We would like to meet with the landowners out at Posfeld Lane and Lone Mountain and talk about some of the drainage issues that we're going to have there. We have a plan that we possibly think could work. Let's see, the brakes, and there's a broken spring on the 1988 Peterbilt dump truck. Mary is working on a public works manual. TJ and one operator are going to get a chemical applicator license so that we can start doing some applications on the sides of our roads for a bare shoulders grading program. And let's see. Cattle guard at the top of Rosgulfs needs some work. Cattle guard on 6 Mile needs replaced. And we talked about maybe meeting with the landowners down on Price Lane to see what could be done with that S-curve that everybody is concerned about. So that's what we discussed at that meeting.
Thank you very much for the update. All right, Mike, I think it's your turn.
Let's see, I attended the hospital board meeting, and there was a discussion. Supposedly they're going to sign final papers on Wednesday if the lawyers in Chicago don't find something else wrong again. Also had a little bit of a discussion about they were going to apply for a new transport bus, which would probably tie into what we talked about, the Whitehall Transportation Program last week, so hopefully we can cooperate a little bit on that. We also had a little agreement or a discussion. They have someone working on agreement for the ambulance storage. The new resident doctor, I believe, starts the 15th of February. She's coming in out of Helena. There's getting a new chief of the medical staff, and Billings Clinic has installed new computers for everyone in the building, and they are now tied into Billings Clinic on all their computer systems. Also attended the Rocky Mountain Development Council, had a Head Start review for the Head Start programs in all 3 counties. Also had a discussion about the Red Alder housing project, which is a large
housing project in Helena, kind of sponsored by Rocky Mountain Development Council. It's going rather well. And that was about it. And we also did a yearly safety inspection in the jail.
All right. Thank you. We all participated in the website presentations and that yearly jail safety review. I attended the weed board meeting. Those guys are really motoring. They just got a grant. Jessica wrote a huge grant. And so weed board and she are working together trying to figure out how that's going to work with spraying this summer and the larger workload that she's going to have. That's quite a coup though. Usually those grants are not awarded 100%. Jessica's was. So
Doing a great job.
she is. BCDC, we met with RY Timber, Ed Regan, and the group, I had to leave early to get to the weed board meeting, but they talked a lot about how to market some of the other opportunities that we have to make sure that the employees who will be potentially displaced for a time have job training opportunities, or at least know about those, and some of the alternative opportunities. We did talk about the mine community, we talked about the feedlot in Whitehall. And I did attend the solid waste board meeting, and that's another group that is absolutely hitting it out of the park, just like the weed board. Those guys are busy. They're doing an awful lot with processes to try and streamline those different operations. So hats off to both of them. That's all I have. Any questions from the audience? Public comment. All right.
I had a question.
Yes.
How did the weed board, did they hire themselves a secretary? Have they worked on that?
They don't have authority to hire.
Okay.
So that is actually up to Mary as the
Okay.
department head,
Yeah.
as a public works lead, and she'll work with a commissioner through our process.
All right, very good.
So we have a few minutes. Do we have a certificate of survey? Okay. All right, we have 5 minutes, so we're going to take care of just a little bit of mail so that we try and stay on our schedule as close as possible. These are all addressed to you, Mike, and I think it's because you were the past chair. This one's addressed to Elaine. I'll give these to you. They're just advertisements, there's 2 of them. One is an Excel program training. I'm going to go ahead and take this. And the other one is a bill breakdown for Northwestern Energy. So I will give those to you. This one's addressed to you, Daryl. All right, so commission mail. We do have a reminder that went out to all department heads about any of their staff that happen to be over in hours. Per our personnel policy and per MCA 2-18-617, that leave does need to be used, or unfortunately it is lost. We don't pay overtime to most of our employees, so they do get comp time, and that's what we're talking about. Oh, sorry. Back to you, Ann. And that is it for the non-signature mail. So we have claims. These are the approved claims, and it is a total of $49,656.26.
I'll make a motion to pay claims and set them out.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded to pay the approved claims in the amount of $49,656.26. Any public comment? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Pass that down the lane. Thank you. Next, we have a cooperating law enforcement annual operating plan and finance plan. This is between Broadwater County Sheriff's Office and the USDA Forest Service, Helena Lewis and Clark National Forest. So this has been in the book all week. It has been signed in the past. This would be for 2020. Do you guys have any questions?
See, so Brandon, I guess you guys have looked at that, right? The agreement?
The sheriff has,
The sheriff has,
I have
okay.
not seen it this year.
Okay.
I think he was under the impression he was on it noon for that. Is that on the agenda?
Oh, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I was treating it as just regular mail.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. We'll just do it at noon. All right, that makes that easy. Okay, so with that, Sean, we have a little bit different structure. Sean Higley, WWC Engineering, presentation of final City County Fairgrounds Master Plan. So what we're doing is we have a new podium, and which I know you've seen, I think you have.
I have.
So with your presentation today, you have two choices. You can either come and sit with us at the table or stand at the podium.
Oh.
What we will do is have you give your presentation. The commission will ask any questions we have of you. Then we'll have you sit down. If you're already seated, then you'll remain seated. Anyone from the public who has questions will ask those of the commission per Robert's Rules of Order and the Civility Policy. And then you will be given an opportunity to give a closing statement.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's up to you if you'd like to sit with us
I'll
or
come
stand
up.
at the podium.
Yeah.
All right.
That's okay. So I have brought 3 copies. Initially, I had talked about bringing all the copies over today. However, I think it would be better suited to have you guys review this. This is the final document. Of course, you've had access to all the appendices, exhibits, everything that's included there, but you haven't seen it probably put together in one document.
Right.
Basically, what's different from the draft that I presented to you guys end of October, into November, is this version goes through the ranking process, all the proposed improvements, how that ranking process was developed. Basically, we ended up through the stakeholder group that we identified, which I believe consisted of one member of the commission, one member of the city council, rodeo board, fair board, 4-H, and then the recreation board. There's one more I'm missing. But anyway, I sent that information out as far as all the improvements that were developed throughout the entire interview and public process to, and kind of pared those down. There were a lot of duplicates, so I pared all those down into one list, sent those out to the stakeholder group, and they ranked them from 1 to 5 based off of their priority. 5 being a high priority, 1 being a low priority. Through that process, I just basically simply weighted everyone's answer and divided by, so I just tallied them up and divided by 5. So everybody got an equal weight and rank. That basically came out with a prioritized list that is now in the plan. What was interesting about that is there were two facilities. There were, I guess, within the funding or prioritized improvements, which we decided at the second public meeting would be anything above a 2.5. So if it ranked 2.5 or higher, then that would be a prioritized improvement. So interestingly enough, there were two facilities that had similar use from a use standpoint, and that would be the 4-H sale, and so a new sale barn building, and a multi-use facility, which around 300 people, right, was the target for that. So through that second public meeting, we discussed having a combination of those two uses into one building to save, obviously, money, maintenance, operation over time. What that ended up with is a new proposed multi-use facility / sale barn that is directly east of the indoor arena. And it's actually got a little covered breezeway that is shown attached to the indoor arena. And so that facility, and basically so they can take the sale barn animals from the indoor arena directly over into the large room of the multi-use facility and have the sale in that facility. Other improvements that kind of came out of that, at least from the architectural side of things, were new restroom improvements that were planned for the 4-H building. Those were moved to the north side of the 4-H building, and to kind of coordinate more, there were a couple of things really. There was a request for more public restrooms overall at the fairgrounds, and by putting them on the north side of the 4-H building, it's close to the other public restrooms and would facilitate everything that's going on at the fair and rodeo. So that would provide more capacity for that. Obviously the wastewater system was the #1 priority, which I completely agree with out there. So we did come up with a plan for two plans really. One to kind of send that wastewater to the city of Townsend through a lift station and force main, which was by far the more expensive option, or to redo an on-site facility at the fairgrounds, which would be roughly just south of the existing commercial building. There's kind of a little dead spot in there that nobody really parks in during the fair because it's difficult to access. So that would be a good site for a new wastewater system in that area. And then, basically we went through and described all the proposed improvements by facility in the master plan, put costs to all of those, and then finished the plan up with a description of the different types of funding that could be used. And there, I do apologize, I believe there's 5 pages of funding opportunities in there, but there's a lot of different improvements at the fairgrounds. Wastewater improvements, multi-use pathway trail that goes from Townsend to the fairgrounds, new building improvements, new public restrooms, things like that. So there's a lot of different avenues of funds that can be tapped for all those programs. And those are fairly well described in the plan. And I think we did finish up with a final meeting with the stakeholder group, which consisted primarily the rodeo club, 4-H, and the fair board, and just discussed, kind of went through the plan in detail, did a few fine-tuning improvements, and came up with kind of a few questions at the very end to consider before implementation of the new facilities. So that's it in a summary. Daryl, did I miss anything?
No, it was good. It was actually good to see everybody come together. I think you remember our first meeting was, we're quite sure how it was all gonna go, but everybody really came together as a group.
It really did, yes.
And focused on what we needed to do. And I think one of the things that came out of it was the facility, we don't have to do that right away. There's lots of other things that need to be done out there at the fairgrounds. That doesn't have to be the priority.
Right.
So we don't need to get stuck on that right off the bat.
Right. And I didn't include a specific phasing plan.
Right.
And I specifically didn't do that because you may have a funding opportunity that comes up to do a wastewater improvement, or that may not come for 3 or 4 years down the road, right? You want to take advantage of the funding opportunities that present themselves, and now they have a list of things to look at, they have the funding opportunities to watch, and they're all prioritized improvements. And if something comes up that you can get good grant funds or low interest loans and you can get that done, then that should be tackled.
Right, and the important thing about that, which is that you have to have the plan
Right,
in order to go after those opportunities.
absolutely.
So that was the reason for doing this.
Right.
One thing, can you speak to, Sean, as how we got to this point? What was the reason we decided to have a master plan?
So I think there was just a lot of discussions early on about improvements and how to go about them at the fairgrounds. I think that was the big push, and new sale barn facility was probably one of the bigger things that pushed it. And from being out there this year, that place was full. I mean, it was absolutely full. And so I understand that.
Yeah, so there was a survey generated by
Right.
the Recreation Board, right?
Right.
And out of that survey, I think the fairgrounds was pretty close at the top of improvements that our citizens in the county wanted to see us tackle,
Correct.
right? So I think that's
Yep.
was kind of the driving force
Sure. Yeah. I'd actually forgot about that point.
Yeah.
Good point.
to bring this plan forward.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, and I have an electronic copy right here
Fantastic.
for you guys, so you don't have to
Thank you.
download it.
One of the things, every year we have the circus in June out at the fairgrounds, and you see families riding their bikes. You also see an awful lot of cars turning off that highway. There's no turn lane, there's an awful lot of traffic, and those bicycle families, including kids, are on the highway because there's no trail, no shoulders. So I'm really glad to see that in here. If we're going to be driving more people out there, we have to have an eye on safety as well, especially for the kiddos.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did commit to, and the trust board was very adamant that they wanted a plan for a multi-use trail. And so that is in the plan. There's also a set of plan profile drawings for a trail in the plan. So those drawings are there. And that's something new that you as commissioners have not seen.
Excellent. Thank you. This is some very, very good work.
I guess it's also important to know that the trust board was a big partner in, that was the other group that you might have been thinking about that was there, was a trust board.
Trust board, absolutely. I
There you
can't
go.
forget about them.
Yeah,
But
they were a pretty big partner.
they were a big partner.
Financially and
Yeah, and they participated throughout the
their
process as well.
participation as well, yeah. Okay.
Anything more to bring forward in the plan or any other questions? Anything else to share, Sean, at this point?
I think that was an overall summary. If anybody has any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
All right. We'll have one of these in the clerk recorder's office for anybody to review. They can certainly make copies. And then we'll have a meeting next week to adopt this.
Okay.
That works with the commission. So is there any public comment? Any public comment? All right. Well,
Man,
Sean,
got off easy.
thank you. I know. Yeah.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks, Sean.
much.
Good.
I'm going to give you a copy, Aaron, for documentation. All right, we are running ahead of schedule, but as our agenda has, and has for since before I was here, issues and times are subject to change. And since we have Bernadette here in the back row, Bernadette Swenson, Schaber surveying, clarification and history of created parcels, COS Book 1, page 752. Same instructions, if you want to sit with us, that would be absolutely fine.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
We were hired to do a boundary relocation on a parcel of land. And it's listed on the survey as an agricultural covenant or an agricultural tract. The only problem is there is a house on it with DEQ approval. So with the boundary relocation, you know, it's where do you keep an agricultural tract that label if there's already DEQ approval? So as we went backwards trying to figure out what had happened or, you know, doing the research, and I put together a synopsis of the order that I'd given to you. This starts back in 1983. There was a 1.2 acre occasional sale. In those, at that time period, you could do an occasional sale, which was, you could sell one piece of parcel of ground a year without subdivision or anything. So that was sold as an occasional sale. And then in 1986, a 1 acre parcel was created and filed as a mortgage tract. But at the same time, DEQ approval was filed with that as an occasional sale. So at that point in time, I don't know if the COS title was in error and it was an occasional sale, which would have been allowed, or exactly what happened, but the COS file says mortgage tract.
Okay.
And then there's copies of that, those surveys there, and the DEQ approval. Then in 1994, that mortgage tract did a boundary relocation to make it 2.9 acres. Now it still has the existing house and DEQ on it. The occasional sale also had a boundary relocation done in 1995 to 9 acres. And in 1995, there was also 2 agricultural tracts created. A 0.4 acre parcel around a potato barn, and the remainder of that area of land was created as a 25.2 acre agricultural tract. So now we have an enlarged mortgage tract, an enlarged occasional sale, and those 2 ag tracts.
So the mortgage tract, at the top of the description, so number 3, the mortgage tract, that became, how is that related to the 25.23 acres ag tract?
Just adjacent property,
Okay,
yeah,
All
just
right.
adjacent property. And those surveys are attached. Then also, later in 1995, a subdivision was done to create a 1.3 acre parcel there in the lower west corner. The land in the legal description was described as the south half of the southwest quarter, which is shown as C there, the south half of the north half of the southwest quarter, which is shown as B, and approximately 1 acre south of a ravine, which is shown as A there, I believe. Yeah, A. And if you look at the subdivision plat, it shows, and in the midst of this, right next to it, another 2.2 acre occasional sale had come out of that, which is right next to the tract 1. What the surveyor did is it showed like each section of that legal description and an acreage, but then it also says total remainder of 113.6 acres. So they did a 1 lot subdivision with a remainder, but showed each of the areas that were listed in the legal description, or, you know, with acreage. So then what happened is when it was sold, it was warranty deeded as separate parcels. So the warranty deed calls out for parcel 1, parcel 2, and parcel 3, all showing these sections of land. So that landowner then took, with the neighbors, did boundary relocation and aggregation of tracts. So there were 7 parcels there then, and they did a boundary relocation into 5. And in the process of that boundary relocation, the ag tract, the 25-acre ag tract, the potato barn ag tract, the mortgage tract with the house, and then some other property was all aggregated into tract B, shown on there, at 29.7 acres. But under the acreage, it does say agricultural tract. So the problem being, it could not be an agricultural tract because it has a dwelling with DEQ approval, and an agricultural tract, by definition, cannot have any dwelling or septic and sewer. It's also fair to note that during this time period, you know, the processes were a lot different, the laws were a lot different. You know, laws and processes change over time. During this time period earlier, an agricultural tract did not go through subdivision approval by the county. It was the process to just bring it before the commission, right or wrong. That's the way all the county, or I know Jefferson and Broadwater both did this that way. And I think that changed around 2000, 2001, somewhere right in there.
Did you also say, Bernadette, that this has changed owners through
Multiple
each of these
times.
iterations?
Yes, it's changed multiple times, and so even this last survey, when you know the aggregation and all was done, most of the parcels, you know, were then sold. I believe Tract A has been held by the same landowner for the duration Ronimos, and but I think all the others have changed hands
You know, tracks.
by warranty deeds
Yeah.
also.
So tracks B, C, and E, are they still owned by the same person? Those small tracks up there,
Let me see which parcel you're looking at.
up in that corner there?
Well, those are all gone.
No,
Yeah.
So they're no longer there?
No, they've all been aggregated
Okay,
into what is now Tract B.
okay.
Yeah. So right now,
Okay.
there's the
Okay.
5 existing ABC
Okay, gotcha.
D.
All right.
So your description of the second to the last page that has JIH, D, G, and F, that's just for informational purposes?
Right, yes.
Just to show the history?
Just to show, yeah, the kind of the order that they went on one sheet instead of multiple.
Okay.
But then that got very confusing, so I decided to strip it all down
Yeah.
and do separate pages.
So this page here then, Bernadette, is how they line out right now?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And you need help for Tract B only, and that is the paperwork that you gave us.
Right, what we do with this agricultural covenant, because if we were to boundary relocate, I can't see how we can keep the parent tract with the house on as an agricultural tract. But, you know, and then if boundary relocates to someone and they have a house, and it seems to be an error, and, you know, the surveyor, is no longer, you know, he's deceased, and, so it's, you know, I don't know if the commission can, you know, lift the agricultural covenant that's kind of been labeled in error on there. I don't know how they, you know, would have done it differently. with the DEQ approval there. But like I said, at that point in time, they probably didn't worry about it because, I don't know, it wasn't an important issue. And during that time period, also from like 93 to the year 2000, 2001, the agricultural exemption not being the same definition as it is right now, in process with the commission and all, it was used as a sanitation exemption and a exemption from taxes being changed to a residential lot. Because in those, you know, before there was the court that allows the property to be taxed as it was before they're sold, it immediately went into a different tax bracket, even if you did continue to farm it. So the common practice was to take any parcel and say, we're gonna keep farming it and get DEQ approval when we decide to sell it, and then the tax base would change on it. So, right or wrong, again, that was just kind of standard practice at that point in time.
And like you said, the laws do change.
They do in court cases clarify, there's, you know, different understandings of the laws as they progress. So if you have any other questions for me, that's the basis behind.
Any further questions for Bernadette?
I looked at this with Nicole, and there was an irrigation easement that went across track B that's not shown on this last survey.
I haven't looked into all the easements and such on it. Yeah, I didn't look further into those details. Are you talking through track C?
It goes across track B to what's now the sod farm. It ran just to the east of that conglomerate of B, C, and E that was.
Oh, to the pivot point, from the pump to the pivot point? Yeah. I don't know if we move forward, that's probably something we can look at, to see if that's still being used or if it's, and show it on any new surveys.
If you look at this, book 1, page 427,
Yes, that's what I got.
it shows that easement going across there.
Excuse me, I'm Della Elke.
Oh,
Hi.
hi, Della.
Come on up to the podium if you would,
Oh,
please.
sure. I just, and maybe I don't have anything that's relevant, but when we, and Diane Kohlberg is here representing risers, in case you have questions particularly for them. In our visit with Pat about this property, he did mention that easement, that he thought there was an easement, irrigation easement for the sod farm through that property. We had no reason or intention to change an irrigation easement.
Okay.
Is that underground now?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very
Sure.
much. So what we should do at this point is, there was a change, I think, at the legislature that allows commissioners to lift ag exempts. If that went through, we need to know what the MCA is. So we should probably work with Tara DePew.
Right, yes,
On
I
this
have
so
no
that we-
idea where the power lies
Right.
or,
Yeah, this is totally
But
different.
I think
It
that
is.
that ag exemption that they passed lifted it for small pieces of ground to be used for public utilities, for like a substation. So if someone put in a substation on your ground, they didn't have to go through a subdivision process to put that substation onto a piece with an agricultural exemption.
Yeah, I know there is an exemption to create a public lot for anything like that already, so. But no, Nicole and I both have talked about this also, you know, we're not sure what the answer is, or what the process would be. But, you know, we can't, it's hard to hold the current landowners responsible for maybe sins of the past.
If they were,
Right, if they were.
right?
Whether they were miscommunications or, you know, I just don't know, but, we didn't feel like we could, of course, just, you know, take it off, take the agricultural exemption off, but obviously it shouldn't have been there with the house site and DEQ approval.
Right, right. And I think each of the different steps along the way, in and of itself, was fine. When you look at the whole picture today, it's a confusing mess.
Right.
Right, which is nobody's fault.
No.
It's just those individual pieces, when they're all put together as a puzzle, that just doesn't make sense
Right.
with today's regulations. So I think this is easily rectified, something that we can easily take care of, but we just need to make sure we work with both of you guys and Tara and make sure that we have the correct law in place. We follow that as it was intended, and now do it right per today's law and today's regulations.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't see any reason why we can't have this just on the agenda next week
Okay.
and hopefully get it taken care of. Do you guys have any thoughts beyond that, or contrary, or
No, I
anything
think,
to add?
Yeah, interesting to see what Tara has to say, so.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any further comment from you guys? Okay, thank you very much. And we will try and have this on the agenda next week. We'll let Bernadette know. And if you guys want to call us, feel free to. Sure. All right.
Thanks, you guys.
This might also be something for the Board of Health
Oh,
as an
sure.
exempt.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Tara's probably the best first step.
I have emailed this narrative to Tara.
I'm
so I
not surprised to hear that.
An answer, just so you know.
Thank you. You are always on top of things, and I appreciate that.
I just didn't have an answer for you today.
Thank you.
All right, we're still ahead of schedule, and our agenda still says issues and times are subject to change. We do have Mary here, I'm glad. Welcome. So, Nicole Brown, Community Development Coordinator, Happy Flats Minor Subdivision, request preliminary plat approval.
Can I sit?
You
At the
may
table instead of
absolutely
standing?
sit, yes.
Shouldn't be so bold as to assume, but
I was gonna give you the option. I was just not fast enough.
there's more copies there, so you can keep yourself, yeah. I have one. I know you have it, but I can. So you all should have your subdivision books, it appears, your applications. This preliminary plat is different slightly than what you have in your book. I'm just going to show you the difference here. They were proposing an access, do you see this, I think I'm pointing at it, this bold area here, so this is Highway 284 running north-south. This was the existing access down south here. MDT prefers that they eliminate this access and put in one up here up north, which is actually better, because then we have no shared driveway issue, no easements to mess with. Each lot will come in off of this location, one will go south, one will go north. So this is actually a better fit. But this is different than what you have in your book, but they still can make changes because you've not granted it preliminary approval.
Good. I was looking at that.
Yeah.
So that's what's come out of the process permit so far,
Yes,
or,
Yep.
yeah,
with MDT.
permitting process.
So, and just for the record, they would not necessarily be able to amend the preliminary plat once you get preliminary plat approval and sign this findings of fact and order document. But since you haven't done that, this is part of the process. They've been working with MDT, the planning board was made aware of this change, and actually this is a preferential change, if you will, to the
Nice.
application. So developer always has the option to be changing their application, not significantly, but for the betterment of the development, and that's actually good planning, so.
Absolutely.
Okay. Findings of fact and order report, and this is on the Broadwater County website, if anyone wants to look it up. This is the findings of fact and order for the Happy Flats Minor Subdivision preliminary plat dated November 26, 2019. This is to the Broadwater County Commissioners from the Broadwater County Planning Board. Date of application was November 26th. They received sufficiency December 9th, and the review period ends January 30th. I just want to make a note, I generally like to give you 2 meetings, so this, I realize with this date, this doesn't really give you 2 chances to meet on it, but I believe we can make an ask of a 10-day extension of the owners. Just then, this is because of the holidays, it got pushed aside, and with planning board meetings. The planning board just could not meet until actually last Wednesday. So I just wanted to make a side note of that. Don't feel rushed in this process.
Thank you.
The planning board met last Thursday, January 23rd. The applicants are Al Bodel, Thomas Huth, and Mary Huth of Townsend, Montana. The applicant's representative is Bernadette Swenson, also of Townsend, Montana. General location, the proposed subdivision is located approximately 9 miles northeast of the town of Townsend, Montana. The applicant proposes to develop 2 residential lots from an existing 6.36 acre parcel. These lots will be served by individual wastewater treatment systems and individual wells. Access to the proposed subdivision will be off of US Highway 284. The required preliminary review fee of $1,700 and the weed inspection fee of $140 have all been paid. The proposed subdivision is a first minor subdivision from a tract of record, therefore a public hearing is not required. The 2 lots created will range from 2.05 acres to 4.31 acres in size. The property is located in an area of agricultural and residential properties. Review is performed pursuant to the Montana Subdivision and Plating Act, Section 76.3.101 through 76.3.614, Montana Codes Annotated, and the Broadwater County Subdivision Regulations. The proposed preliminary plat, Happy Flats Minor Subdivision, as submitted by the applicant, together with the required supplementary plans and information, appear to satisfy the requirements of these regulations and comply with the Broadwater County Growth Policy Plan dated July 2003. A preliminary plat, vicinity map, and topo map of the proposed subdivision have been provided. No rock outcroppings or the presence of bedrock have been identified on the property. The proposed subdivision is not in an area subject to flood hazard, according to FEMA's floodplain map. These tracts will be served by individual wells and wastewater treatment systems. Since all parcels are less than 20 acres, review and approval will be performed by the Department of Environmental Quality. The lot owners will be responsible for disposal of their own solid waste. Subdivision residents will have the option of hiring an independent contractor to pick up their solid waste or transport it themselves to the Dry Gulch Canister site, which is approximately 3 miles south of this proposed subdivision. This property is currently used for hay and grain storage. Lands in all directions are agricultural. This 2-lot subdivision will have a minimal effect on agricultural productivity since no lots are being removed from agricultural production. According to the applicant, the proposed subdivision is not located on prime farmland as defined by the Natural Resource Conservation Service. This subdivision is considered to be compatible with surrounding uses since the surrounding area is mostly residential. That is not correct. It's mostly agriculture. No matter how many times I read this, there's always something I catch. Mostly agricultural with some residences. No conflicts between the proposed subdivision and adjacent farm operations have been identified. This proposed subdivision should not interfere with the movement of farm machinery, operation of any irrigation systems, or diminish the availability or quality of water in the surrounding area. An environmental assessment was not required for this subdivision. No hazards such as falls, slides, or slumps are indicated on the plat. There is no known seismic activity, no geological conditions which might affect the development, such as unsuitable soils, were identified within the proposed subdivision. There are no areas of marsh, grassland, shrub, or forest located on the property. Currently, there have been no noxious weed identified on the property by the landowner. A noxious weed management plan application form is included in the preliminary plat application as item number 27, but to date it has not yet been approved. If in the future any noxious weeds are identified, they will be sprayed with the appropriate herbicide. The subdivision should have no impact on wildlife areas such as big game wintering range, migration routes, nesting areas, wetland, or important habitat for rare or endangered species. Because of the size of the parcels, the proximity to the highway, and the fact that only 2 home sites are being constructed on the property, any effects on wildlife should be minimal. A letter to the Montana Historical Society is included in the preliminary plat application as item number 33. To date, a response has not yet been received. However, if any historical, paleontological, archaeological, or cultural sites, structures, or objects are identified during construction, the applicant will notify MHS. And actually, at the planning board meeting, I don't know if these are in your book, it's a packet that looks similar to this. Montana Historical Society actually did respond, and there are no known sites.
Excellent.
No new roads are proposed for this subdivision. This subdivision will have access from the existing US Highway 284. An existing approach to the highway exists, and these lots will have shared access to the approach. Northwestern Energy will provide electrical service to this proposed subdivision. Phone service will be provided by CenturyLink. It is assumed that all utilities will be installed underground. The Broadwater County Rural Fire District will serve the proposed subdivision. A letter written to the Broadwater County Rural Fire District is included in the preliminary plat application as item number 26. The developer is proposing to pay the per lot cash in lieu fee of $1,000 to BCRFD at time of lot sale. The nearest fire station is the Duck Creek Fire Station, which is located approximately 1.5 miles north of this proposed subdivision. The Broadwater County Sheriff, located in Townsend, will provide law enforcement, and the Broadwater Ambulance Service, also located in Townsend, will provide both ambulatory and emergency services. The Sheriff's Department and Broadwater Ambulance Service are both located approximately 11.7 miles southwest of the proposed subdivision. Letters written to both agencies are included as item number 23 of the preliminary plat application. The proposed development will generate approximately 3 school-aged children whom will attend school in Townsend. There is an existing school bus route that serves this area, and the addition of 3 bus riders may have an impact on the bus route, but will likely not have an impact on the school. Lands in all directions are agricultural. This subdivision should be compatible with surrounding land uses, since there will be only 2 home sites constructed on a pivot corner. The close proximity of the US Highway 284 could pose a hazard, and landowners can mitigate any potential conflicts by constructing fences surrounding each property. Since this proposed subdivision is the first minor subdivision from a tract of record, no parks or recreation facilities are required. It is hereby ordered that the preliminary plat for the Happy Flats minor subdivision is approved subject to the conditions listed below. Final plat approval shall be contingent upon completion and compliance with these conditions. Number 1, plans for sewage treatment and water supply shall be submitted to the Montana Department of Environmental Quality for review and approval. The certificate of approval shall be filed with the final plat. Number 2, prior to any development and/or soil disturbance, a weed management plan for the proposed development shall be submitted to the County Weed District for review and approval. Number 3, prior to any development, a driveway approach permit shall be requested from the Montana Highway Department. Number 4, the applicant will be required to submit the final plat drawings in electronic format to Broadwater County in ArcGIS, AutoCAD, or MicroStation format. Additional materials may be requested by the county in electronic format to facilitate review of application materials. Number 5, the applicant and the Fire Protection Authority having jurisdiction shall use their best efforts to draft a fire protection plan specifically for this subdivision in accordance with the Broadwater County subdivision regulations. The plan should be equally acceptable to the FPHJ, the applicant, and the county governing authority. The plan shall adequately address the fire risk analysis, all findings of fact, and appropriate mitigation measures. In the event the parties are unable to come to an agreement by the time of final plat submittal, the applicant shall become eligible to provide the per lot cash in lieu fee for water supply, as may be defined in the Broadwater County subdivision regulations in effect at the time of submittal. 6, the final plat shall be prepared in accordance with the applicable state survey requirements, Montana Subdivision and Platting Act survey requirements, and the county subdivision regulations. Number 7, the book and page reference to the restrictive covenant filed with the county clerk and recorder shall be indicated on the face of the final plat. In addition, restrictive covenants, revocable or alterable, only with the consent of the Board of County Commissioners, shall be placed upon the property and shall provide for the following. Excuse me. A, per the subdivision application, all lots shall be used for residential purposes only. B, notification of the potential